Okay, let's unpack this. We are sitting here looking at a season of sport that, quite frankly, defies any standard logic.
It really does.
We're looking at a competitive landscape where the impossible happens so often that it's actually become the baseline.
It's the new normal.
We are talking, of course, about AFT Dice Season 11. And look, usually when we do a deep dive like this, we talk about heart, we talk about grit, the narrative arc of a season.
The hero's journey.
Exactly. But today, no, today we are stripping all of that away.
We have to. We're looking at what I like to call the architecture of chaos.
The architecture of chaos. I love that framing.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the stack of reports we have here, I mean, we've got match reports from round 1 all the way through to the round 16 fallout. This isn't just a story of who won and who lost.
No, not at all. It's a story of statistical anomalies.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're talking about a season defined by just, high variance, these wild percentage swings, and a simulated environment where the dice rolls dictate that absolutely anything can happen.
It's a fascinating case study in probability and volatility. I mean, if you look at Season 11 strictly through the lens of the numbers, and I mean, forgetting the team names for a second, forgetting the history, just looking at the raw data, you see these incredible surges.
Yeah.
Followed by these mathematical corrections that are they're brutal.
Brutal's the right word. Our whole mission today is to analyze this season strictly by the numbers.
Huh.
We want to decode how a team can look like a premiership favorite on a Monday and then suffer a 50-point loss that weekend.
Right.
What does the data say about momentum in a dice-based environment? I mean, is it even real?
Or is it just a cluster of lucky rolls that we're trying to attach a story to? That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. So we've got all the reports, rounds 1 through 16, leading right into this massive round 17 finale.
And what stands out immediately to me is the margin volatility. In a traditional human sport, you have fatigue, you have injuries, you have psychology.
All those variables.
Here you have raw probability, and yet patterns emerge.
Patterns emerge, or maybe patterns just completely collapse.
Sure.
Let's jump right into the deep end, back to where it all started. Section 1. The statistical outliers of the early rounds 1 to 4.
Okay.
I remember looking at the round 1 power rankings, and my jaw it hit the floor. We have to talk about Adelaide.
We absolutely have to. Adelaide's start to Season 11 it's a statistical absurdity.
It's ludicrous. They walk into a showdown, a game that is historically tight, fierce, and they don't just win. They dismantle Port Adelaide by 66 points.
Yeah, complete demolition. But it's the number next to their name on the ladder that's the real story.
That's what I want to focus on. 191.7%.
191.7. That number is the buffer we talk about in statistical analysis. When you start a season with a percentage of nearly 200%, you're essentially buying yourself insurance for the next 10 weeks.
Okay, so explain that concept of insurance for the listener who might just look at the ladder and see the points column. Why does that percentage matter so much so early?
Well, think about how the ladder works. You get 4 points for a win, right? That's the main goal.
Sure.
But when teams are tied on points, percentage is the tiebreaker. So by banking a percentage of 191.7% in round 1, Adelaide created this massive mathematical cushion.
A cushion, right.
They could effectively lose 3 close games later in the season, but because their percentage was so artificially high from that one outlier event, they would still stay above those rivals on the ladder.
So it's a tiebreaker that basically lasts the whole season.
Almost the entire season, yeah. It's like starting a marathon with a 5-mile head start.
That's a great way to put it. And the psychological impact of that, even in a simulation where the players are just beta points, it sets a tone, doesn't it?
It creates an aura of invincibility. They were scoring 138 points in round 1. It tells the rest of the competition that their offensive ceiling is nearly untouchable.
While Adelaide was banking all that percentage, Richmond was doing something different. They were establishing a scoring floor that was just higher than everyone else's.
Oh, the Tigers were absolutely terrifying early on.
I'm looking at the data here. Round 1, they score 136 points against Melbourne. That's a huge score.
In any era, yeah.
Then, round 2, they back it up with 132 points against Brisbane.
And that consistency is what's so rare in a high-variance environment. To score over 130 points in back-to-back weeks suggests that their offensive algorithm, or, the dice favoring their forward line, was just running incredibly hot.
Yeah, and you compare that with teams elsewhere in the league who are struggling to even break 80.
Right. Richmond established themselves statistically as the heavy scorers. They weren't really relying on defense. They were relying on the fact that if you score 135, the probability of you losing drops to, maybe 5%.
So they were just playing the odds by overwhelming the opponent's capacity to keep up.
Exactly. The strategy was, we will score more than you can possibly chase. It's high risk, because if the dice go cold, you don't really have a backup plan. But early on, it looked absolutely unstoppable.
Unstoppable being the key word there, I guess. But then we get to round 2, and we see something that I think is the first true crack in the matrix, the GMHBA anomaly.
The Cardinia Park factor. This is such a great data point. Statistically, GMHBA Stadium is a fortress.
It is.
The home ground advantage variable there is significant in almost every iteration of this simulation.
It's usually where visiting teams go to die.
Right. And yet, in round 2, we saw the Western Bulldogs, who were ranked 12th at the time, mind you, walk in and beat Geelong by 63 points.
63 points. That's a 10-goal margin at the Cattery.
It's almost a statistical impossibility in a standard model. I mean, for a road team to win at Cardinia Park is rare. To win by 10 goals, it suggests a complete collapse of the home team's defensive structure.
A total system failure.
We are talking about a failure rate on defensive roles that just defies the average distribution. And look at the fallout. The Bulldogs' power ranking shot up from 12th to 6th. Instantly.
And that's that volatility we were talking about right at the top.
Yeah.
One good afternoon of dice rolling and you can jump half the ladder.
Precisely.
But while the Dogs were celebrating, there was a dark side to these early numbers, the panic button teams.
Oh, yeah.
We had Sydney and Essendon sitting there at 0-3.
And 0-3 in a 17-round season it's a death sentence, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
The historical probability of making finals from that position is incredibly low.
Especially if you look at Essendon's plight. The metrics were fascinating. They weren't just losing, they were fading badly in games.
In round 2, they kicked .1 in the last quarter.
0 goals, 1 behind. That is a flat line.
It's a zombie stat line. They were competitive early in games, and then the numbers just fell off a cliff. They went 0-4, then 0-5. Statistically, a team that starts 0-5 has a near zero probability of making the finals.
They were mathematically dead in the water.
You'd think so.
But you say mathematically dead, but this is season 11. Zombies walk. Because that brings us perfectly into our second section. The correction and the Christmas chaos of rounds 5 through 8. Just when we thought we knew who the good teams were, Adelaide, St. Kilda the Math decided to humble everyone.
The fall of the Invincibles. This is a great lesson in regression to the mean.
It really is.
Entering round 5, St. Kilda and Adelaide were the only undefeated teams. They were both 4-0. The predictive models and just basic human intuition would suggest they stay on top.
Momentum says they just keep rolling.
But statistics say unlikely. And by the end of round 5, 0 undefeated teams, both of them lost.
And the way St. Kilda lost. Okay, we have to talk about this game. Western Bulldogs versus St. Kilda. I've read the report 3 times and I still don't quite believe the numbers.
The shootout. An absolute shootout.
It was a video game score. The Bulldogs kicked 22.14, and that's 146, to defeat St. Kilda's 21-point den, which is 136.
That's 58 goals combined.
58.
It's a data point that just screams high risk, high reward. Both teams essentially abandoned the defensive phase of the game.
It seems like it.
What's interesting here is the strategy or the statistical profile of a shootout team. The Bulldogs proved that their scoring ceiling was high enough to beat anyone, even the undefeated Saints. But relying on scoring 146 points to win a game is it's not a sustainable model.
You can't roll double sixes every single week.
You really can't. That variance swings both ways.
Well, tell that to Essendon, though. Because suddenly, the team that couldn't buy a win, the team that was 0-5, performs a statistical U-turn that shouldn't be possible.
The zombie revival. This is one of the most curious anomalies of the whole season.
So they're sitting there at 0-5. Everyone has written them off. Round 6, they beat Brisbane. Okay, it's 1 win. Maybe a fluke.
A dead cat bounce, maybe.
Right, but then they keep going. And the peak of this madness was round 8.
Round 8 against Port Adelaide. Essendon wins by 68 points. 68.
That is a 10-goal thrashing from a team that was winless 3 weeks earlier.
Think about the variance there. Just a few weeks prior, this team kicked .1 in a final quarter. Now they are dismantling a competitive side by over 10 goals.
So what does that tell you?
It highlights the volatility of form in this data set. Is Essendon actually a good team, or did the probability distribution just swing wildly in their favor for a month?
I think it's the latter, but it made for a hell of a story. It really challenges the idea that team quality is some kind of fixed metric. In this season, quality seems to be fluid.
It's totally fluid. The dice don't have a memory, but these clusters of results create this powerful illusion of form.
Speaking of illusions, we have to talk about Hawthorn. I call this the chaos metric.
Hawthorn is a fascinating case study in unsustainability. If you look at their early run, round 1, they win by 7. Round 3, they win by 4. Round 5, they win by 2.
They were the close game kings, just living on the edge every week.
But mathematically, clutch is often just randomness dressed up as skill. Winning close games consistently is incredibly hard because one bad bounce or one low dice roll changes the entire result. The data was screaming that Hawthorn was overperforming. They were winning games they statistically shouldn't have been winning based on their scoring output and their percentage.
And usually when you live on those last kick miracles, the bill eventually comes due.
It always does.
And spoiler alert, the bill did come due later in the season. But before we get there, we have to touch on the scoring ceiling again. We mentioned the Bulldogs scoring 146, but round 8 saw the GWS Giants take it even further.
The high watermark for the season.
They scored 149 points against the Bulldogs, 22 goals, 17 behinds.
And when you hit that, 150-point mark in modern formats, you are doing immense damage to the ladder. You're not just adding 4 points for the win, you're boosting your percentage so significantly that it acts like an extra half win.
And that's exactly what happened. GWS jumped to number 2 in the power rankings right off that one result.
It just shows that in this season, offense was the primary driver of ladder position. You couldn't just defend your way to the top. You had to have the capacity to explode for 150 points.
It really was an offensive season. But as we moved into the middle of it, Section 3 now, rounds 9 through 12, that offensive dominance started to get to be, well, weird. We saw ladder compression. We saw midseason variance that just made no sense.
The New Year shift around round 9 represents a total loss of consistency, especially for those middle-tier teams. And you have to look at the Bulldogs again. They are the perfect example of this.
I can't look away from them. They're a complete roller coaster.
In round 8, they concede 149 points to GWS. A defensive catastrophe. You'd think they're completely broken.
You would.
Then, round 9, they come out and beat Collingwood by 64 points.
That is a swing of over 100 points in differential in just 2 weeks. How do you even analyze that?
You analyze it as zero consistency. It tells us that the Bulldogs were a pure high-variance team. Their floor was terrible, losing by 50, but their ceiling was premiership standard.
Which, for a fan or a bettor, is an absolute nightmare.
A nightmare. But for a statistician, it's a sign of a team that relies purely on momentum and, high rolls. When they hit big. When they miss spectacularly.
So while the Bulldogs were bouncing all over the place, West Coast was doing something very specific. They were becoming the clutch team, taking over that mantle from Hawthorn, but they were doing it on the road.
Yes, West Coast established themselves as the Road Warriors. And this is where the difference between percentage and points becomes so crucial. Look at their data points.
Okay.
Round 9, they win by 1 point against Port Adelaide and Adelaide. Round 13, they go to GMHBA, which we already know is a fortress, and beat Geelong by 1 point.
2 one-point wins on the road. That is stress-inducing just to read.
And it differentiates them from a team like Adelaide. Adelaide had percentage dominance, big wins, big margins. West Coast had premiership points dominant.
Winning ugly.
They were winning ugly. They were winning tight. But in the standings, 4 points is 4 points. The data would suggest, though, that West Coast was walking a very fine tightrope. Winning by 1 point means a single defensive stop or a single rush behind changed the entire outcome of their season.
And while they were walking that tightrope, round 11 came along and just pushed everyone else off the ledge. The percentage massacres.
Round 11 was the blowout round. It really felt like the simulation collectively decided to widen the gap between the best and the rest. It was brutal.
Let's just run down the carnage here. Hawthorn, the close game kings we just talked about, got destroyed by Essendon by 56 points.
The bill came due.
It certainly did. Fremantle destroyed Gold Coast by 60 points. And St. Kilda destroyed Richmond by 45 points.
Those are huge margins for deep in the season. Usually you expect games to tighten up as teams are fighting for final spots. Here, the rubber band just snapped.
So what does a round like that do to the ladder?
The impact was profound. Because these games weren't just wins, they were massive percentage reshuffles. Fremantle briefly jumped to #1 on the power rankings.
And not because they had the most wins.
No, not at all. It was because their defense plus scoring efficiency metric spiked in that 1 week. It just shows how fluid that top 8 was. A single 60-point win could vault you from 5th place all the way to 1st.
It really was a game of snakes and ladders, wasn't it? But as we turn the corner for the run home Section 4 now, rounds 13 through 16, the volatility didn't stop. If anything, it actually got sharper. We started seeing results that just didn't compute with the established narrative.
The shock metric peaked in rounds 12 and 13. Definitely.
I'm looking at these scorelines and just shaking my head. Round 12. Collingwood, who are ranked outside the 8, smashing Adelaide, the ladder leader, the percentage monster, by 48 points.
That result just stripped away Adelaide's aura of invincibility. Until that point, the data suggested Adelaide was unbeatable at home. Then Collingwood walks in and just dominates them.
It proved their high percentage was maybe covering up some defensive cracks.
I think so. But round 13 was perhaps even more shocking. The Western Bulldogs mid-table, inconsistent, destroying Brisbane by 60 points.
And Brisbane was a top-tier team. They were genuine contenders.
This is the any given Sunday factor quantified. When you have top-tier teams like Brisbane and Adelaide suffering massive percentage hits late in the season, it changes all the predictive models.
It throws them out the window.
It suggests that there is no safe team. If the ladder leader can lose by 10 goals to a mid-table side, then the premiership race is wide open. It means home ground advantage and ladder position might not matter as much as simply who rolls better on the day.
And that lack of safety became very, very real for Richmond and Geelong in round 16. We're calling this the collapse of the safe bets.
Yeah, this was crunch time. Round 16, you want to be ramping up for finals. You want your trend lines pointing up. Instead, what happens? Richmond loses by 52 points to Essendon.
Essendon again, the spoilers.
They really became the agents of chaos late in the season, didn't they? And then Geelong loses by 42 points to Gold Coast.
These were teams that looked mathematically safe for the top 4. But because of these late-season percentage hemorrhages, they suddenly found themselves sliding down the ladder.
Right when you can't afford to.
So what does that do to a team's statistical profile heading into a final series?
It destroys it. Losing by 50 points a week before finals is a disaster. It drops your percentage, which can ruin your seeding, but it also signals that your defensive structure is failing under pressure.
It's a huge red flag.
A massive one. It's a reminder that in a dice-based environment, past performance does not guarantee future results. Momentum can just stop dead.
But amongst all that wreckage, one team quietly climbed back to the top. St. Kilda.
The return to #1. It's a great story of consistency. While GWS and the Bulldogs were having these 150-point peaks and then crashing, St. Kilda just kept applying pressure. They finished round 16 at 11-5 with a percentage of 104.7%.
Now hold on. 104.7%. That seems incredibly low for a ladder leader. Adelaide was nearly 200% back in round 1.
It is low, you're right, but it represents resilience. Their pressure elite status meant that even when they didn't score 140, they prevented the other team from blowing them out.
So they won the grind.
They won the grind. Consistency of win accumulation beats high volatility in the long run. They didn't need to win by 60, they just needed to win.
Slow and steady wins the well, not slow. High pressure wins the race. So here we are, standing on the precipice of round 17, section 5, the final landscape. The math is, it's tight.
It's a mathematical lock for the top 8 teams, but the order is pure chaos. We have Brisbane, St. Kilda, West Coast, Richmond, Melbourne, Adelaide, Geelong, and Gold Coast. They're all in.
And the cutoff seems to be 36 points.
That appears to be the safety threshold. If you hit 36 points, you are in. But look at the wooden spoon calculation. This is my favorite statistical anomaly of the whole season. North Melbourne.
Oh, poor North. 3 wins, 13 losses. Brutal.
But look at the metric of competitiveness. Typically, a 3-win team is getting thrashed every single week, scoring maybe 50 or 60 points.
Yeah, they're not competitive.
North Melbourne was a high-scoring loser. They scored 107 points in a loss. They scored 102 points in another loss.
Wow. That is heartbreaking. To score over 100 points and still lose.
It suggests their offense was finals quality, but their defense was just non-existent.
Or, to put it in dice terms,
Or more accurately, they were involved in these wild shootouts where they just happened to roll slightly lower than the opposition. They were statistically an anomaly compared to typical bottom teams that struggle to score. They weren't bad, they were just incredibly unlucky in high-variance games.
the most entertaining wooden spooners in history.
Yeah.
But let's look at the form index heading into the finals. Who is hot and who is cold?
Hot is definitely Gold Coast. They've pulled off those massive upsets over Geelong and the Bulldogs. They are peaking at exactly the right time.
And on the cold side?
Cold. It has to be Richmond and Geelong.
It's terrifying to be cold right now, heading into a final series.
Absolutely. Richmond coming off a 52-point loss. Geelong coming off a 42-point loss. Psychologically and mathematically, their trend lines are pointing directly down.
So the seeding battle in this final round, round 17, is going to be incredibly intricate.
Oh, it's all about the math now. The difference between finishing first and fourth or fifth and eighth is separated by mere percentage points.
One goal could change a home final to an away elimination final. It is that tight.
Exactly. A single rushed behind in the final minute of round 17 could reorder the entire top four. The margins are that fine.
So bringing it all home, what is the story of AFT Dice Season 11 when you look at all this data?
I think it's a story of extreme volatility. We saw huge winning margins followed immediately by crushing losses. We saw no team able to hold on to dominance for more than a few weeks. It was just constant churn.
It really feels like the season of the glass cannon. Everyone could punch hard, but everyone could be shattered just as easily.
That's a perfect analogy. The offense outpaced the defense across the board, and that's what led to these wild, unpredictable swings.
And here's the thought I want to leave you with, as you get ready to watch this final round. In a season where the dice dictate the outcome, where we know it's all a simulation, does momentum actually exist statistically? Or is what we call momentum just a narrative that we apply to random clusters of high rolls? Did Essendon really revive, or did they just flip heads 10 times in a row?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it? We try to find stories and patterns in the numbers, but sometimes the numbers are just chaos.
Watch the round 17 percentage wars closely. The math is going to decide everything. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.